Hey, good morning, everybody. It is Friday, June 6th, 2025, and a few minutes past 8 here on the U.S. East Coast. Welcome to the Dev Talk Show, where we are continuing to work on a user group app with ASP.NET Core minimal APIs, the Blazor WebAssembly standalone project type, and Azure Cosmos DB. So different technologies that, at least for me, I didn't have as much experience in as other aspects of ASP.NET Core or Blazor or database storage, and that I think that was intentional. So to see how we're doing this Friday morning, let me make sure not to forget to introduce my co-host Rich Ross. How are you doing?
Doing well, Chris. Happy Friday.
Yeah. So we have it's not going to be a super long show, I think, but because we're already about 10 minutes past 8. But I think it's fair to say that we've been kind of definitely slowed down to do a couple things. And one of them was when we started working on this, we were actually moving pretty briskly. The Blazor WebAssembly project worked. I think we even had an episode where we deployed it to GitHub Pages because it's a SPA. You know, Blazor WebAssembly standalone is a true SPA versus Blazor Web App with the islands of interactivity. I love that phrase from Dan Ross, so I keep using it. The Azure Cosmos DB emulator has done the job, and we basically just implemented right there in the minimal API declaration. We just say, hey, go do the thing.
Right.
And then I think we got responsible and said, hey, only the smallest of small projects would probably do things this way. So, and I think part of what we're trying to do is, besides accomplishing the goals of the app, is explore good practices that we can all take to work. Right. So we started breaking things apart. And we've run into some places where we explored the .NET Aspire testing project and a separate test project with XUnit. And I think just trying to get all that wired up with like the web application factory so that we can do like an outside-in test. It's taken some time.
Yeah, but I think it's time well spent, right? I think we wanted to kind of jump in and get to a good point, and then be able to kind of say, okay, let's do this like we were doing a good production, or a good production app.
Yeah, right. And so let me see if I can. I don't know that I wish there was a way that I could make this larger, but I don't know that I can. So I'll just have to use zoom it and zoom in. But let's see if this is all going to work fine. If oh yeah, okay, almost, except nice. That let me remove it because I don't want it to do that. I want to do this. There we go. That's what I'm looking for.
Okay. That's pretty good.
Yeah, so this is a source control viewing tool. People know that I do a lot of my source control work at command line, but I'm trying this one out. This happens to be called SourceGit, and it is open source. One thing I have not figured out how to do is it doesn't seem to have Control plus Control minus support to zoom in. Certainly a suggestion I could make. And if that support is here, I just don't know where it is. So I can always do this. And where we finished off our last show is we added the in-memory repository and implemented get by ID. So we really only had one method done. Mm-hmm. The app was not ready to function, basically. And if I recall correctly, I think even one better, because we added an interface to access the repository, the Cosmos DB version of it was sitting on not implemented, I'm pretty sure, where it just throws a not implemented exception.
Throws the error.
Yeah. I think that's where we're at. So what I'm hoping we can do in a short amount of time is finish that off, get that committed to version control, and then I think it'll give us an opportunity to talk about future plans, because I think we have them. I think there's a lot of little bits we'd like to do. Maybe we even add some GitHub issues live. I don't, we'll see.
Yeah,
So
that'd be fun.
Yeah. So first I need to open a project. And so here's our project. And this should match the same commit that you're seeing there, that we saw in here, which is the origin main commit at post show 250530. Let me just see. The SHA for that is 4BB91C. And the only reason I'm saying that is I want to go out to my command line, and I'm going to do a git status, which didn't really tell me a whole lot. So let's do git log, and we'll even do a one line. And yes, we are currently at 4BB91C9. So, and you can also see that it's telling me that I'm on that tag post show of May 30th. I'm up to date with what at least my machine has for origin main and the current default head location. So, if you're new to Git, or even if you're not new to Git, I kind of go over these things because maybe you'll start to see kind of the way I view Git, which is I view it very commit oriented, not branch oriented, which is different, and might take some getting used to. And I also said it on purpose that this is where my machine believes origins branches are. Well, why is that important? Because if you don't fetch, your machine doesn't know.
Yeah.
But so many tools auto fetch now. Git Kraken is one of them. I actually went and turned that off. Git Kraken will just auto fetch. You can configure it to only do it like every so often, but it'll just keep things up to date like in this magical feeling way.
Yeah, VS Code's the same way. There's when you first acted, hey, do you want us to auto get this stuff for you? And I always say no.
Yeah, and look, I understand why people leave the default, which is they leave the yes default. I understand that. I really do recommend try learning to live without it. Try learning to understand the separation between your remote, which in this case for us is a GitHub repository, and your local repository, your version of the repository. So, in fact, I'll do you one better. Play around with a repository on GitHub as origin, fork it, and then set up a second remote locally pointing to your fork so you can do interesting things like commit only to your fork. That's not quite the pull request model, but I think it's a good way to understand like how Git actually works.
Yeah, no, that's cool. Okay. I'm always thinking, or it's trying to think of new ways of getting people to understand Git, because I'm actually doing this course in the fall related to DevOps, and Git is kind of one of the core pieces that we want to make sure we understand, because you don't want people to, leave the, head out into the workforce and be afraid of Git. And many people are like, I know how to commit, I know to add, I just add everything. It's add dot, right? Like, no, let's slow it down a bit and walk through it. So
I know we won't get into it here. There are aspects of DevOps being heavily reliant on branches that I think can cause confusion.
Sure.
And so I'm always eager to talk about that stuff, because I think developers begin to really rely on branches, which, don't get me wrong, it's not a bad thing, but don't forget branches are just pointers. They are not actual physical things. As you saw in my graph there, I could create branch after branch after branch, all pointing to the same commit, but it's the same physical commit. And I think there's plenty of developers that'll branch and then they'll start coding and they'll think, well, I've moved off into my own space. And it's like, well, sure, you've added new commits, but you are still reliant on all the old ones. So anyways, that's enough of that. But I think it's very interesting in a DevOps context. I've had personal experiences where people have really scratched their head as to like, I thought I fixed that in the DevOps pipeline. So, all right. So what do we have? We have don't necessarily want to do like this big review. So what I want to figure out is where are we right now? Let's start off with running the Test Explorer. The Test Explorer is discovering tests. Oh, interesting. It's discovering a lot of interesting tests here. It's discovering tests that I worked on previously. So I've had this issue for a little while. So it turns out I did a little bit of research. I've forgotten about all this stuff. And if I go, and this is Visual Studio, and just for folks who are watching that maybe aren't on Windows, not using Visual Studio, Rich and I think we have talked about having episodes where we're not in Windows, not using this tool, maybe use VS Code in Linux, maybe use other things, right? Just to show that your project, how do you keep a project portable, I think is interesting to me. So I found in order to get rid of certain test results, I'd forgotten about this, honestly, is test menu, clear all test results, or control or delete, which I don't think I knew that. So I think when I build, I thought it was going to, because I don't even think I have the 8 unit tests anymore. So let's see what it discovers. As you might have guessed, I've been working around on this. And oh, yes. Okay. So it reduced the tests that it found. I've been working on this in some other places at times, right? And so it's still trying to run the Aspire-based tests where it's going to bring up the whole orchestration. And whereas our in-memory versions, which for now are what we're doing in lieu of something like mock, but I do think we should explore mock in the future. They take a while. So how do we get those to not run? And that part of the reason they're being discovered is that they're right here. Let's see if they all pass. They may not. Another thing I think we're talking about in the future, right, is for integration testing, the data store setup so that the tests run. And I don't want to say we want to make them pass, but we want to put them in the proper state so that the tests expect, because it is a stateful test at that point. Yes. Okay.
And that failed. Okay.
It failed, which is fine. We were gonna. Yeah. It takes a minute to set that up. Fine for a DevOps pipeline, not something that we'd want day-to-day developers to do. So step number one was like, well, let's just remove this from the project. Okay, so that seems easy enough. But then upon running this again, it just kept trying to run the tests. So I believe that clearing the test results might be enough. But I also I had cleaned the solution just because we're live. Let's see if that's enough to get us to only run the tests. I've been trying to figure out exactly what a good pattern is here to help. What is it you have to do and what is it that you don't necessarily have to do? Like I see, it's going to run them anyway. It's going to do it anyway. So, go ahead.
I was going to say you hit run all tests, but it was removed from the solution, so it shouldn't be there. It's right. All tests shouldn't include that.
I know, and so you didn't get to experience the confusion and fun that I had during the week trying to say, how do I make this go away? And so clear, this was one of the things. And then I think, gosh, I don't know. And see, I hate saying like, oh, well, maybe you have to restart Visual Studio. I want to know what you have to do, like what you really have to do, so that it just doesn't seem to be like voodoo. Oh, you know what? I do remember one thing that actually might have been the trick. So let's find out. Maybe we'll hit upon it right here. Let's open Test Explorer. And well, for one thing, okay.
Now it's gone.
It's gone. Does that mean there's some kind of initialization that goes on? I'll tell you, I did some searching around for suggestions as to like what do I do to get it to stop discovering tests I've gotten rid of?
Okay.
And some of the suggestions were clear the unit test results. One was restart Visual Studio. Another one was get rid of the VS file, which I did not do. I did not do that in this iteration, but I did in a previous attempt to try to understand what to do. I'm not going to sit here and tell you I've got it nailed, but this is what we want. We want to be down to just these tests. They're going to be very quick too. That's what's really cool. So,
okay.
I'm sorry that I didn't come out with the grand answer there, I think. And I'm still a little confused, but I think Rich knows me that I want to figure out what did you really have to do and what just becomes part of the incantation that really didn't matter. So yes. I definitely try to figure that stuff out. Okay, what else can we do? So last time when we were struggling with some unit tests or some tests and just trying to prove that they were working correctly, for no real reason added that hello method. Where's the test for it? Here it is. Just for no real reason added this, just because it was just a quick, we were on the air, didn't know what was going wrong. Can we just get any method to return 200 okay? Mm-hmm. But we don't need it. Like we don't actually have a hello API planned. So right. We'll remove it from the...
We do
health is part of Aspire, right? Don't get me wrong. Health, we're all about health endpoints. We just don't need hello.
Gotcha.
Other things that were going on. So here is something that we did last time. And if you followed along with us, I'm really sorry, because you're going to wonder but wait, it's still broken. It's still broken. Remember how we set this to static?
Okay. This
turned out to cause problems. And the problem that it caused was in, let me think. It wasn't in meeting CS. It was in the Cosmos iteration. So we set this to static thinking we're never setting the type. In fact, it was a suggestion.
Yeah.
No one's ever going to set this type. It's always going to be meeting. Why not set it as static? Because it's always going to be meeting. Well, in the in-memory repository, no sweat, no problem. In the Cosmos version, it caused a problem when I tried to... So, see, we didn't implement this. We didn't implement get meetings by ID. And when I went to implement it, that's when I started to run into trouble. So let me go ahead and show you. In order to just get by the issue, we just went ahead and just said, yeah, go ahead and be not implemented, right?
Okay.
Watch what happens if I put in an implementation. Well, first of all, the problem here is it says, wait a second. Oh, well, okay. First problem is it's complaining about the await method.
Yep, async.
Whoops. Boy, I would say it's Monday, but it's not. Okay, so now everything seems like it's going to work, but the problem that you end up having is this was blowing up. And it was blowing up saying that the partition key was not set. I don't know that we have...
Partition key is not meaning its type.
Right. So,
unless that's the value in there.
Yeah. So what ended up happening is a meeting is getting passed in, and we are telling read item async. So get meeting by ID maybe wasn't the problem. It might have been post meeting is where I ran into the problem. The problem that I ran into is that it would complain that it could not set the partition. No, maybe it was get meeting by async. It's reading the item out of Azure Cosmos DB and then saying, but I can't set the partition key. And why can't it set it? Because it's static. It's like I can't set that type. I can't set that item. So what I ended up doing, and again, we may think about this, is I ended up removing this again, living with the issue for a little bit anyways. And let me think, was that the only thing that I had to do? because we already had the in-memory version. Ah, yes. Okay. So then this has to go back from being trying to reference a static type to... So basically, the other way was a runtime error with Azure Cosmos DB's SDK. If I take out static, it becomes a compile time error because we can no longer reference type by its class name. We have to reference it by its instance, right?
Okay.
So I remember having trouble with it enough that I just said, I think maybe we'll park that and figure out a little bit later. I think though, see, this is where I'm a little confused because I think these problems surfaced. They didn't surface here. They surfaced when I created because you could do this and not worry about it at all.
Okay.
I feel like the problem surfaced when I implemented. Oh no, wait! I went to the wrong. Oh, I'm in the wrong spot. I'm in Program CS. I am not where I thought I was, which was the Cosmos meeting repository. That's here.
Oh,
sorry.
It's okay.
Well, that's what we get. That's what we get for having implemented this right in place, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So, the problem came a little bit later, and I don't think we're going to run into the problem because, like, I kind of have the solution. And again, we'll have to see if I'm barking up the wrong tree. We don't have everything. We can't completely switch over yet. We can use the repository, injected repository, in our get the list. This is like a list method, and then this is get an individual.
Mm-hmm.
But we can't use it to post yet. And why? Because we don't even have it on our interface. So,
right, there's no post method on the interface that we created for the repository.
Right, we are still only at get meetings async and
get means by ID.
and get an individual one. So we need a method here that we're going to have to implement on both of our repository types. Oh, I wonder what it was going to do. What were you going to do? It was so cute. Yeah, I think that's exactly it. We need a method where we could create a meeting, and we're gonna pass in our strongly typed meeting to do so.
Should we say post, or is?
Well, so that's an interesting semantic question.
Yeah, totally
should
is.
the repository care about HTTP semantics, or should it use like more of a verb of what it's trying to do?
Right, because you could make an argument, right, that the get on line 7 and lines 9 refer to the fact that we are calling a get call in the API. So maybe that should be collect meetings async or collect the meeting by ID, right? Because that's the verb. That's kind of what you're doing.
It might be interesting.
Maybe it's more request.
This should be like list.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, and then this is getting a specific one.
Exactly. Yeah. Totally semantic conversation. So I think it's fine with what we had. But you're right. It does infer an implementation.
I'm pretty sure that I changed it. I just changed it everywhere. Let's see. Yeah.
Probably not. Oh yeah.
No.
Okay.
Because by using the tool, which I will admit I often fail at.
Right.
ReSharper experts would say, like, you would never forget if you used ReSharper regularly. Control R, do the rename, and it just does it.
Yep.
So we've officially changed it. But we do want to create a meeting. Okay. Now we need this implemented at least in memory. In order to compile.
That's because the implementation is not there.
Yeah, that's its complaint. So I'm just going to cheat and say, go ahead and implement the interface. And then it does. And it says, all right, I can implement it. Sure. But it's just not going to do what you want. And this turns out to be, let's see, I'll be curious if it gets this, but no, that's not it. Wait, actually, yes, we have a list. Our in-memory implementation has a list of meetings, and we're going to add to it. And then we are going to, return. I don't know that we necessarily have to do this. This is something we'll talk about when we look at the results. But we'll return the meeting you just created for now. I think we could think about in the future what we want to do. I don't know that it's a bad idea. Remember, we're the repository, not the API. So whether the API wants to return it all back, I don't know. But what if you were a different app using this repository? Maybe you do want to see, maybe it is important to get back, well, I just sent you this. What did you add? I don't, it's not something I think to worry about at the moment.
Okay. Fair.
So, but anyways, because I was thinking, like, does it want to be the meeting? Do we want it to just be the ID? And I said, like, I don't know that we're stuck on it. Let's see about this. Probably, let's do this. Let's do that. Let's go ahead and throw a new not implemented exception just for now.
Yeah.
And then let's go back to our tests.
I like the message that was included. The in-memory version does not support creating meetings.
Yeah. Doesn't, yeah. Yeah, it's true. Okay, so we need a test for this. And I've actually already written one in my past life. So what we're going to do is we're going to say, let's see how long before it figures out what we're trying to do. No, interesting idea, but that's not it. So public async task, create meeting, returns created meeting. Maybe. Okay. All right. So we're going to arrange by creating a client from the factory. We've got a third test meeting. That seems okay. It doesn't have a start or end time, though, so maybe we'll add that.
Okay.
We want to post as JSON async. I think that is the correct, yeah, that's the correct extension method with our new meeting. It's asserting that we got a good status code, and then it looks like it's reading it back, which, what did I just do? Let's do this first. And then, this time it did add this in. We can't, I don't think we can do this.
Right.
Okay, but, okay, so it did, I was just going to say I wanted to add this in manually, but it did it in this second one. Okay, sure. Assert that the status code is equal, assert that the created meeting is not null, assert that the meeting IDs are the same. I think just for now, I'm going to do this. I just think about that one. We don't have to. It should be fine. So here's the key: is the reason why I'm doing this is because we want to go back to Test Explorer. We want to run our new test, and we want to watch it fail, right?
Right.
You know, I've had this happen where it. Oh. I thought we implemented this. Oh, I think I know what just happened. No. Okay. Boy, what have I done now? Let's go ahead and implement this again. We'll let it be not created. We'll come back. Okay, tests all. One of the tests failed, and it is this failed because it's returning internal server error instead of, I know why. We didn't implement it on the Cosmos repository. Like, I forgot that we also did the same thing over here.
Oh, sure.
Our in-memory one is also throwing an exception. So the API is returning an internal server error because it's getting an exception result back. So it's blowing up. It's returning that explosion to the test. The test is saying you're red. That's actually what we wanted, I think.
Yeah.
So now we can say, okay, we definitely had a red test. let's do what we think is the right thing, and then come back to Test Explorer, and this should go green, I'd like to think. Oh, no, it still didn't. Oh, I know why. I know why it still didn't go green. Because let's go back to our API. What are we still using in our API? We're still using the direct connection to a Cosmos DB, which is not going to work because we're not firing up the emulator. Yeah.
Yeah.
So we can finally, well, no, this is good. This is why I'm glad that we insisted on the red test from the beginning, because then when the test really did stay red, then we went, huh, why? So now we don't want to bring this in anymore. We already have a scoped meeting repository service coming in. So let's take that. Well, let's see. We still need to model bind to a meeting, and we'll bring in the repository. And then we just created this create meeting async method, which takes a meeting, the meeting that came in from model binding, and we are returning results created with the like we could even do this, and then it would fail because we're trying to return the HTTP status code for creation, notifying the caller that we created the resource that you asked us to create. That's probably the best way to put it. So now our test goes green, which is cool. Now we have a deficiency, I think, in that we're now going to implement this here, but we don't have an integration test or even an integration test like platform that lets us, write that test and make sure that it's going to succeed. I think we can get there, though. It's just not going to happen right this second. And so instead of the not implemented, we're going to say, what is it that we need to do? We get in a meeting. We're going to be async because we're going to call out to Cosmos, which is IO bound and all that stuff. So I'm going to get an answer back from calling the container create item async method with the meeting and the partition key. Yeah, maybe I wonder if I was overthinking it when let's see what happens. And then we can just return that answer, I believe. It's interesting that it wants to return response.resource.
We're supposed to be returning a meeting, right? Is your responsive?
Yeah, so create item async does magic for us.
Okay.
And it says it's smart enough. In fact, I think it's fair to say that create item async, yes. So create item async is generic. You can type this here. But I think what happens is, and here's what happened is, this is why I don't have it in my notes, is because the IDE comes along and says, you don't have to say this here, because it can infer what the generic method's type is very quickly. It can just infer it out of here. So it's not required. That's why you didn't see it. But I mean, you could, for it to be explicit, you could do this. And then we know that this is this. And I mean, we could change this to that too.
Yeah, var is great, but when coming off of something that creates an item async, it could be anything, right? And I was actually think it was an HTTP response message that we got back as opposed to an actual class of meeting.
No. So, and I think that's great. In fact, we could even change this to be that, maybe created
meeting. Yeah.
Yep. So this is good, right? This is the code review part of it, which I love, because you can see that when I implemented it, a couple things, right? Why do I tend to start coding with var sometimes? Why? Because maybe I don't remember what a method returns, and var is going to get it right, and I can switch it later. And then here, I said, well, create item async returns a response. So whatever. But I like that as we're reviewing this, we're saying let's be more explicit. And we could probably do that with a lot of these too.
Sure.
So maybe we'll see a pull request for better naming.
Or
That's
maybe.
score one. Yeah. We could ask Copilot for better naming. That'd be really interesting to see what it says. So, okay.
Look at this method. This is how we did it. Go do the rest.
Yeah, I am wondering now, what else do we have to do to see this run? Because we do not, unfortunately, right now, we don't have integration testing that proves that we're doing this correctly with Cosmos DB or a Cosmos DB stand-in, like a container, an emulator, something like that. We don't have that. I'd love to get there so that basically, and I was kind of kicking around in my head this idea of, couldn't it be the same test with different targets? So
it could be, but that's going to rely, because of Aspire, that's going to rely on us pointing to something that already exists without running the app host.
Well, what I mean is that the core logic of the test is in a testing library that the actual tests pick up. So these API-based tests that use the in-memory version pick it up. You could write another version that uses mock that picks up what you want to do. And then you have another version that uses the Cosmos DB emulator for integration testing. And you can see if you haven't figured it out, for people watching, what my plan is to maybe create another solution that has I don't know if it has to be another solution. What I want is I want to be in a world where the day-to-day developer isn't reliant on bringing up the emulator just to test, or we do it in a faster way, which I think we could do. I think that's where test containers could be very interesting for us. If it could do it in a very quick way, then fine, leave it in the day-to-day. But we definitely want it running in the pipeline.
Right.
So unfortunately, we can't just run the app. And it's because, yes, we've updated this, but let's now think about what the app relies on. And when I say the app, that's me. I should really be more clear. It's the web application. The web application, remember way back when we created an iMeeting service?
Mm-hmm.
This is living in the web applications project. And it's doing a lot of the same thing. It's saying, I don't know where you're getting it from, but just go get the just go get the API, basically. Did I say that right? Maybe not.
Just go get go
do whatever you have to do to get the meeting. That's what that's the wording I'm trying to use, right?
Yeah.
So we don't have that method. Like we don't have that right now for posting a meeting.
Right.
So I think the problem is like it can't, like we need that in order to continue. All right, at least I'm pretty sure we do. If I tried to run this, why am I thinking that maybe, why it works? Because this has it in here built in, doesn't it?
Meeting service, get meetings async, right?
Add meeting async. No, actually, we actually do. So we have add meeting async.
Yeah.
We have get meetings. You know what we don't have? We don't have the ability to pick up an individual meeting.
Oh, yeah.
But we haven't implemented that yet. So maybe I'm thinking ahead. I might be thinking ahead. Maybe this is just going to work. See, maybe it's ready.
So while it's building, so what we're saying is the web project has the services, and the services knows how to get the data, the information that we want to display on the website.
Right.
Okay. And the services is doing that because it knows how to talk to the API.
Yeah.
And then to go the full transit, the API then has used the repository to go ahead and get the data actually out of the data service or out of wherever the data lives.
I'm trying to figure. I feel like something's not right here. But well, here's why. Because look, get meetings async is implemented, but this isn't deriving off of iMeeting service either. Okay, so what's happened that I've forgotten about? Let's go back to
sorry. Go ahead.
The program CS. Oh, remember when we switched to the type? That's what it is. We did a show where we switched to a typed HTTP client. So meeting service isn't even in use anymore. That's why I'm confused. One reference. Only the reference is in program CS. It's being added, but nobody's calling this method. Okay, so now meetings HTTP client. Here it is. This is why in the moment I'm getting confused as we switch to this. Okay. All right.
I do remember that. Yes.
Yeah.
Now that you say it.
So what do we have? .NET Aspire came up. .NET Aspire, everything's running. Hopefully, even might be nice if it was even like healthy. That would be cool. Yeah. Yep. Got meetings. Do we even have items in here? No, but that's okay. Let's take a look. Go to meetings. Add a new. It said no meetings available. That's good. As you can see, I've been playing around with this. Oh, man, we got to talk about issue ideas. Issue idea that I have is based on the title. And I would love to shadow drop a plausible description. Now, I'm not 100% sure if we really want that feature. I just know I would sure like it for testing. so when I'm testing here, I type this in and then I got to go like, okay. Right. And then I got to add something. And then I get pedantic and I don't want to have a misspelling. And some other things that I've been thinking about is I would love for it to be able to have a sort of default time.
Oh, sure.
Because many user groups kind of have a same start time. So why is it picking current time? I mean, I know why it is because that's what we implemented. But maybe just have a default time built in. Okay, so we saved the meeting. That worked. Go ahead. I'm sorry, Rich.
We don't need a time picker that does minutes and seconds, right? We could do the 0, 15, 30 kind of thing.
Yeah. I mean, you could fine tune it if you have to. How do I... there it is. That's what I wanted to see. This is what I wanted to see. I just wanted to see in the emulator that we're actually using Cosmos DB in the app. We're using the Cosmos DB emulator. So I wanted to see that. And we wanted to see that it's recorded here. And the last place that I think I want to look is, let's go. We've been using this HTTP support that's both in Visual Studio and also available with an extension. And let's send this request. And we get back a 200 OK, which I like. We get back this particular item. Let's also see what it looks like when I just get, let's see, that posts. Let's try to get meeting 4. This is not what we want. So we have an issue to fix.
Why is, because it's just
it's not
you
found.
Don't want to send back a no.
Yeah. We're not getting that not found. So we have a bug to fix, and I'd love to put this in as an issue, and maybe we can play around with that. Heck, maybe we can see if GitHub Copilot will fix it for us. I can send a request for meeting number 5. 201 created. That's how I want it to work. Let's go back and see it's in the list now. Perfect. And then just going to go ahead and change this to 5 so that we can see the individual one come back. But any other one, this is not what we want.
Right. Uh-oh. Chris hit the magical combination of keys and has seemed to kick himself out of the meeting. And I've seen this. It's funny. I've seen other shows do this where they've got debugging and it's up and running and they close the browser and that gets rid of the debug session. And then next thing you know, it also takes down your StreamYard instance because it's running in the browser and we're running StreamYard here. So we'll give Chris a couple seconds to hop back on. I am going to very quickly try and ping him in the back channel on Discord so that he knows that he's no longer talking to us, because I was watching a stream and somebody actually did that where they closed their browser, got kicked off of this, or got kicked out of StreamYard and then kept on presenting, not realizing that they were no longer in StreamYard. Hey, you are no longer in StreamYard. Let's see. I mean, unless it's something more catastrophic than just the browser closing. It seemed to be where he was going. He's basically stopping his debug session there. So we saw some cool things. The good thing is that we have a number of issues that Chris kind of flagged through there. So I was kind of keeping track of those through the timestamp as we were going through them. So hopefully we can get those into the issues in GitHub very quickly. And here comes Chris. Did you close your browser?
I think it got closed for me. Or maybe I closed it. Maybe I closed it. I didn't mean to.
I figured that's what it was.
How far back did that happen, when the app closed?
When the app closed, yeah.
Yeah. Sorry about that.
Don't. I was, while I was riffing for you to come back, I was explaining that I saw another stream do the same thing. So I knew what had happened.
Right.
Like, give it a second, I'll be back.
You know, that actually, I used to set the StreamYard browser window in a different way, and I think I'm going to go back to how I did it.
Okay.
I actually used a different browser profile.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I think what's happening is Visual Studio is opening the Orbital app, and it might choose the same browser window and open a new tab. And as you know, when you close debugging in Visual Studio, it'll close the tab, but maybe it's closing the window on me. Or I might have done it too. It's always possible. Yeah. But it might have closed the window on me. I hope it wasn't too long.
It was a minute or two. I was.
Oh my gosh!
I hadn't run out of stuff to say, which is surprising.
What was I talking about?
That I don't remember.
Okay, so we saw the app work. There are some things to think about.
Yes.
One of them is, I think we have to deal, and these are things that we can open as issues and deal with. I think we have to deal with the fact that ID is actually required. It's required partially because, I mean, we have to have an ID set, but we are not enforcing that in the class.
Yeah.
So that's going to lead to a discussion of who should set the ID. Should it be, and by who, I don't mean a user. I don't mean,
right.
Yeah, I don't mean the end user, but should it be the client API or should it be the service?
Yeah.
In an ordering system where you're placing orders, I often advocate for that ID to be like a transaction ID and for it to come from the caller who's placing the order, because now that gives you an idempotency of where if I didn't hear back from you what happened to my order, I can freely send it again using the same exact transaction ID, and the server side can say, I already got this.
Okay. Right?
So we're cool. But I don't know that we need that for this app, because primarily the users of this app are going to be using the web interface. We're not, I say that, and then of course I'm going to be proven wrong.
Right, because I'm already thinking about the mobile aspect of this.
Yeah, I know. And you've even thought about eventually the API, and listen, maybe I'm not saying this correctly, but it's supporting like MCP.
Yeah.
Okay.
Which just because an API lets you create an item, that MCP service, or the Model Context Protocol, which is a way for agents and large language models to be able to now very easily have a set of tools like your APIs, like we're doing here. Just because an API exists doesn't mean we have to include it in an MCP. So we might just say, hey, all you can do is get stuff.
Right. Sure. Right. I hear you.
Sorry. Side tangent. Sorry.
No. You're right, and I'm interested. I can't wait to work through some of that stuff. So I'm really sorry about that mistake. And I think I'm going to go back to my old way of connecting to StreamYard, because I realize now that this never used to happen, and I think that's why. So, all right. Okay, because now it's happened in the last couple of days. So the last few times, because remember, this happened recently. I don't know if it was the last show or the one before, where I closed StreamYard in the middle of our discussion, and I said, "Yeah, I think it's because I've changed how I was using it." All right, gotcha. We're kind of nearing the end. We have something that I think we can commit. We saw that so let's just go ahead and take a look at our API that gets a meeting. Okay, here's the problem right here. It's line 63. What are we doing? We are returning the model. We're just flat pure returning the model. We are not returning a typed result. Minimal APIs is fine with it. It just says it's smart enough to say, like, okay, well, I'll just return 200 okay with this model. Like, that's cool, right? Well, it's doing what we want when the model exists, but when the model doesn't exist, you saw it's returning null, which we don't want. We want it to return 404. So we could fix this in 30 seconds. I'm wondering if we want to create a GitHub issue and let Copilot have a crack at it.
Yeah. You're in Visual Studio. Do you have VS Code up with this?
I have VS Code, sure. But I don't know that it's pointing to this.
To that project. Okay.
Hold on. I could be wrong. Yeah, here we go. Oh, whoops. Okay. Maybe get it kicked off in the last second is what you're saying here?
That's what I'm thinking. So open up a new Copilot window. And you can do, here's something really cool you do. If you do the drop down from the little Copilot dude up in the title bar there.
I just want to make sure, okay, we're on the same spot. Good.
Yep.
So do this.
Do open chat.
Okay.
And that's going to bring that. And then do the plus.
New chat.
The ellipse.
Oh, okay.
And then open it in a new window. So it comes up on top of.
Oh, I gotcha. Over here.
Right. And it's a modal dialogue, but you can keep it so it's always on top as well. So that's something else to think about. So you've got an agent set, you've got Claude.
Oh, the only file even. Sorry, I just happened to notice it even's paying attention to what I have highlighted. That's cool.
Yes. Yeah, if you highlight stuff, it will bring that in. Okay. So in here, just to the left of that, where you have the all the way to the left of the microphone, and then the one to the right of that, tools.
Okay.
Did that open anything? Oh, there they are. I'm sorry, I was looking in the wrong place. GitHub Copilot chat, and then scroll down. Got Mermaid. Keep going. Azure, and then GitHub Copilot for Azure. That's fine. This may not. So we'd have to. Yeah, I don't know that you have the GitHub MCP that lets you do that. So it may not.
Let's start with it.
Try it.
Let's start with it next time, because it's a small enough thing that I think we could watch it. Is what you're telling me is we could ask it to post the issue?
Yes.
Okay, post the issue, solve the problem, create the pull request. We could probably ask the agent to do that.
Yeah, they would probably be slightly different steps. Go create the issue first, and then we'll take the issue, we'll assign it to Copilot.
Yeah. I mean, I think everybody here watching knows what we're going to do. We're just going to basically say, like, returns. We're going to figure out if the meeting existed, and then, in fact, look, there it is. There
you go.
That's one way to do it, right? So, but I think it would be an interesting exercise to go ahead and see Copilot chat do it. So, all right. So Here's where we're at. I owe everybody I owe everybody a commit to source control. If you're watching and following along, we know some people are, and the tags format has been pretty good, where it's going to be like pre-show and post-show for today's date, but I'll include it in the show notes as well. And apologies if you're watching very quickly after the show. It's probably going to happen a little bit later in the day, but.
Oh, that's awesome.
Oh, whoops. Look at that.
Where did you go?
The scenes kind of got messed up a little today. So,
okay.
For example, if I go back here and then set this and then come back, I have to remember not to touch this. It's hard. I'm happy for some of the new StreamYard features. They are very good, but they take a little bit of rewiring your brain. So.
Oh, and if I touch those things across the bottom, that messes the scenes up.
It changes the scene.
That's my fault.
I wish you could. Okay. I wish you could lock a scene. I wish you could say, "Okay, it's good."
Yeah.
You can't change it, because then we could just scroll through scenes and go like, "Okay, we're coding, whatever." So
yeah.
But I don't. Okay. If you can't do it, then if you can do it, I just don't know how. But I don't think you can.
Okay. Cool.
All right. So that's good enough. So hey, everybody. Have a great weekend, Rich.
You too, Chris.
Everybody watching, have a great weekend. Hope you enjoyed the show. I think we're at a point where we're ready to start adding more features, because we have the testing to back it up. You can always watch any previous show, youtube.com/TheDevTalkShow. And that's it.
Yeah.
All right. Have a great weekend, everybody. For Rich, I'm Chris, and we'll see you all next time on the Dev Talk Show. Oh, see, look at that. You're still there.